Hello, welcome to another episode of Batman's Thoughts. So you know what I realized? I haven't done a Star Wars video in a while. So I thought, now would be a good time to do one. And who better to talk about than Boba Fett? I love Boba Fett. A guy who can talk back to Darth Vader? Come on. Anyone who can talk back to Darth Vader and live is definitely a great character. And then when Mandalorian revealed that Boba Fett survived, at least in terms of the Disney canon, I was excited. We were all excited. And then when he showed up in Season 2, he just was such a badass. And then it was announced that he was getting his own show. This was great. Who wouldn't be excited for that? About anyone who's actually seen it. Now, don't get me wrong. There were parts of Book of Boba Fett, I really liked. I loved how he kind of bonded with the Tusken Raiders and it humanized them a little bit. Seeing more Fennec Shand kick ass, come on, that was great. But there was some stuff that didn't quite do it for me and a lot of people. But make no mistake, I hope there's a Season 2. Because I think there's still a lot of great potential. And I think if they learn from the mistakes of Season 1, I think Season 2 can be a really great season. So what do they need to do? Well, I think they need to do a lot of things. But for this video, we'll focus on three things they can do. So, number 1, make Boba Fett a badass again. This, I gotta rule with respect nonsense. Oh my god, give me a break. Like, Boba Fett is a guy that no one wants to fuck with. Yet, in this show, it just... no one respected the guy. He wants to rule with respect and no one respected him. I mean, the only reason the Hutts left was because they were afraid of someone else. That's not Boba Fett. That's not Boba Fett at all. This is the guy who talked back to Darth Vader and lived. So, and even Tamara Morrison himself agrees. So yes, make Boba Fett a badass. Number 2, bring back Cad Bane. Cad Bane is one of my all-time favorite Star Wars villains. For those of you who don't know, he was a major adversary in the Clone Wars. Just a criminal, bounty hunter, just a guy who did bad work for money. A mercenary, bounty hunter, honestly, all that stuff is kind of the same thing to me. But anyway, this was a guy who gave the Jedi a run for their money. And he was brought back in Bad Batch, a spin-off of Clone Wars, where he fought Fennec Shand and put up a good fight against her. So when he was brought back in live action for Book of Boba Fett, this was great. Even for kind of a rocky season, just seeing Cad Bane in live action, I was excited. And then he died. In one episode, he died. Oh, I mean, technically he was in 2, but he only appeared at the very end of the penultimate episode before dying in the finale. I know sometimes deaths need to be permanent, but you didn't have Cad Bane there long enough for a permanent death. So, for Season 2, you gotta bring back Cad Bane. I mean, the whole show stars a character who died in the original trilogy. So, yes, bring back Cad Bane. Now, lastly, I would say, make it Boba Fett's show. Weird, right? Book of Boba Fett, and I'm saying make it Boba Fett's show. So we had the first 4 episodes of Book of Boba Fett. Great show. Definitely Boba Fett's show at least. And then episode 5 happened. Return of the Mandalorian. And it started with Mando, and I was like, cool. Get to see where he's been. And then it was getting very far in the episode, and I'm like, this isn't going to show Boba Fett anytime soon, is it? And then, at the very end, Fennec Shand appears. And says, hey, we need your help, and Mando, being a bro, does Boba Fett's work for free, or helps Boba Fett out for free. And then the episode ends. This is a 7-episode season, and 1 episode was another person's show. Someone who already has their own show. I mean, all the characters, they were all Mandalorian characters in that episode. And then you get to the next episode. Mando wants to see Grogu. Now, don't get me wrong. That episode was great. You got to see Ahsoka again, and Luke Skywalker, and you got to see them meet in person. To see Anakin Skywalker's apprentice and Anakin Skywalker's son finally meet. This was great. But they did it in the wrong show. These 2 characters have nothing to do with Boba Fett, and we're seeing a meeting in his show. Don't get me wrong, Boba Fett was in that episode for a cameo. A cameo in the Book of Boba Fett. This was, again, an episode about Mando reuniting with Grogu. So, yeah. Now, 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett, and Boba Fett only had a cameo between these 2 episodes. That's about 29% of the entire season. And then the finale happened. And honestly, even though Boba Fett was in that episode and was featured a lot, even did the final blow to Cad Bane, Mando still stole a lot of that show. I mean, a lot of it was Mando and Grogu reuniting. And we see Boba Fett learn to ride the Rancor. And that came out of nowhere. Because we were focused on another person's show. Another person who already had a show. Here's Boba Fett. He wants to learn to ride the Rancor. And then we see he's learned to ride the Rancor. They had 2 whole episodes. We could have shown a little of that. And yet they had to give us 2 Mandalorian episodes. Now, make no mistake. I love The Mandalorian. Out of every show that has finished at least 1 season, Mandalorian is by far my favorite of the Disney Plus shows. But when I'm watching Book of Boba Fett, I want to watch Book of Boba Fett, not Mandalorian. I'm not a fan of show takeovers. And when your best episodes of your show is basically doing another show, that's not good. So yes, I think Book of Boba Fett Season 2 has great potential. Keep a narrative focus, make Boba Fett a badass, and bring back Cad Bane. I'm sorry, but you can't kill off Cad Bane. But I think Book of Boba Fett has great potential. And if they greenlight Season 2, which I hope they do, I think it can be a really great season. So please, Disney Plus, take this stuff into consideration. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. What do you hope they do for a Book of Boba Fett Season 2? Should they greenlight it? Hashtag Justice for Fives. May the Force be with you. And have a bat-tastic day.